Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time around, we're taking a look at a mod by the name of RoboCop. Believe it or not, RoboCop is based on a film, also called RoboCop. Not the remake, the original. The remake was trash. So what exactly do you do during the course of Roblox Cop? Well, you generally uphold his prime directives, which consist of serving the public trust, protecting the innocent, and upholding the law. There's a pesky fourth directive, but we don't need to get into that right now. And it largely translates to bringing many evil, gun-wielding gang members to a swift and violent end while confiscating the illegal goods and occasionally rescuing a hostage along the way. Oh, and eating baby food. We can't forget the baby food. Now, some of you may take objection to the fact that I'm also gunning down unarmed gang members here, but these gentlemen are in clear violation of the 1987 Wideness Act, which states any gang member exceeding a width of 1.5 meters is officially classed as a lethal weapon in their own right, and lethal force is permitted when necessary. And guess what? I deem it necessary. There is, however, one glaring omission that I couldn't help but notice straight away when it comes to the RoboCop mod, and that's the fact that it is distinctly lacking in the ultra-violence department. I mean, for sake of example, I'm shooting a rocket at this guy. That's how he dies? Really? That is not in keeping with RoboCop at all. I think that needs to be tweaked, and I know just the thing. As you can plainly see, things here are vastly improved, and this is thanks to the inclusion of the Bolognaise Gore Mod, a mod that ensures that roughly 95% of gang members will now explode as if they are gore-filled piñatas. It's not a perfect solution, but it's one that works for keeping in with the themic intricacies of the RoboCop movie. Speaking of themic intricacies, the structure of this mod is such that it actually does a pretty good job of following along with the general plot of the film itself, so if you're one of those poor, unfortunate people who are unlucky enough to never have seen RoboCop for themselves, consider that your homework. You can even pause right here and go watch it if you like. I'll wait. Seriously though, go watch the damn film. So in the grand scope of things, you'll find yourself battling across about 16 levels total, and these are spread over the course of 5 individual episodes, each of which relating to a particular location. The previous one was the riots in Old Detroit, this one is in the Red Light District. Now interestingly, this kind of structure means that you'll frequently find yourself dialed back to a pistol start, which can feel oddly deflating when you've gotten through an absolute melee of enemies in the previous episode and acquired a nice healthy roster of weaponry. That said, the pistol itself is something not to be sniffed at. It is an absolute shredder of a weapon, as well it should be, considering it's aping that iconic sidearm from the movie itself. Beyond that, it doesn't typically take too much time before you start trading up to other armaments. One thing you'll certainly notice about RoboCop during the course of play is that post-episode 1, the difficulty doesn't so much gently curve upwards as much as it violently spikes, jabbing you somewhere between the ribs. It's a mod that seems to outright flood its various rooms, hallways, and corridors with gang members, all with itchy trigger fingers and all more than capable of putting significant dents in your armor. What compounds things somewhat in the difficulty department is the fact that some enemies here are projectile-based, and the fire rate is pretty thick and fast, but amidst all of that, you've also got the presence of hit-scan enemies. You'll often get multiple types clustered in one room, making it very difficult to identify what you should prioritize first. More often than not, this leads to a few unfortunate situations, such as entering a room and finding yourself beset upon on all sides and vainly spinning around in hopes of thinning out the herd before they do too much damage to yours truly. Now, you'd be thinking, surely this isn't so much a problem, there'll be plenty of health littering around, and up to a certain point that is the case. There's usually enough bits and bobs to actually regain some of that health that's been chipped away in situations such as this. Unfortunate rocket hits notwithstanding. But as you get deeper into RoboCop, those resources become scarcer and scarcer, making it a little bit more artificially difficult than it should be. If you need a good example of peak bullshit difficulty here in RoboCop, I humbly direct your attention to Steel Mill 2. Coming hot on the heels of Steel Mill 1, which was no walk in the park in its own right, featuring a slew of mini-bosses and not a lot of health to go around by the end of it, starting this level felt just a little harsh. I mean, sure, it graces you with a 200% armor pickup to begin with, but making your way through this stage feels a little too much trial and error. It was pure luck that I stumbled across those hostages there, which would replenish 10% of health apiece, but just see how long that actually lasts me. I mean, nearly every corner that you round here will lead you into the direct sightline of yet another enemy, and then you've got to deal with enemies at different elevations, you've got to deal with enemies partially obscured behind wooden panels, you've got enemies that are outside the fence that surrounds the level itself, firing into the area that you can actually move around in, often catching you off guard from behind. And all of this could be made a little bit more bearable if they just gave you a health pickup at the start of the level to go along with that armor. It feels like the latter levels here really do need a bit of a balance. They need to be less stingy with the health and the ammunition, and the placement of certain enemies really needs to be rethought, because this mix of projectile and hit scan and heavy and light, it just becomes dizzying. Now, despite this occasional soul-sucking degree of difficulty, I can still say that I found myself compelled to continue playing, even if I did have to input the occasional give health command in order to get through that preceding segment. And I think that just speaks to the solid, straightforward gameplay that's actually quite enjoyable when it's not busy trying to curb stomp you squarely in the nutsack. Another element of this mod that certainly helps to keep me engaged amid all the frustrations is the fact that the level design here is also extremely readable. It never gets overly convoluted, you usually have a very clear idea of where you need to go and what you need to do. There's no obsessive switch hunting, it largely boils down to find keycard, go to keycard door, jobs are good. Things I really enjoy about this RoboCop mod. I really enjoy the fact that you do get to have several showdowns with Ed 209, not just the one. What dampens my enthusiasm somewhat for the Ed 209 fights is that the standard grey version has a hit scan cannon, which is several degrees of fuck you. But the other version, which is a more militaristic green model, comes equipped with the Cobra assault cannon, which you'd think would be a worse compromise, but that actually is projectile based, so I actually enjoy fighting against that one, because dodging is possible. I also really love how this mod interprets your confrontations with the gang of Clarence Boudica. In this case, it is personified by a showdown with a delivery truck. I thought for a while that it was literally just going to be a truck driving at me until I noticed that one of the gang members actually leans out the side and fires at you. And it actually dispenses gang members as it drives around, giving you more additional things to deal with. I thought it was adorable. It was something that always made me smile, and thankfully it happens multiple times during the mod, so I got to enjoy it multiple times over. And yes, you also get to deal with Toxic Melty Man, which is just a wonderful touch. Last but certainly not least, I enjoy that you're actively incentivized to rescue hostages and confiscate contraband in this mod by having them provide you with a health boost for doing so. It feels thematically appropriate, and it just helps you feel a little bit more like RoboCop. But on the subject of hostages, after you get to the red light district, you'll frequently find different mixes of hostage. So you'll usually get office workers, there's one just around the corner here, and you'll also get gyrating stripper sprites from Duke Nukem 3D. In certain situations, you will have both of them stood directly next to each other. A very stoic office worker just desperately trying not to make eye contact with a stripper really dedicated to gyrating in public. It made me laugh on multiple occasions, and something I hope they never ever change. So, would I recommend RoboCop, the movie, the mod, the game? I'm gonna have to say yes, despite my misgivings, despite the fact that I was seeing red at various points during the playthrough of this particular mod. I'd still say that I had a pretty fine and dandy time with it. Granted, those aspects that proved more frustrating than others I would like to see potentially smoothed over or polished, but it is officially classed as in beta, so there's no reason to assume that tweaks will not be made in future, but in the meantime, what you've got here is still what I'd class as a pretty damn good start. So, if after watching this you've got an insatiable urge to dispense justice and deal with what is surely just a few pesky difficulty spikes, then you'll find the link for RoboCop in the description below. While I'm at it, I'd like to give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in lending a hand yourself, maybe you'd like to see your name in the credits, maybe you'd like to gain early access to my videos before anyone else, well, if that's the case, you'll find the link to my Patreon page also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future editions of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.